So good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world. And welcome to another video of the Chill Dude on a Couch. I'm your host, Hector. And every year I have a top 25 or a top 20, but there's always some albums that barely miss my final best albums of the year. And this year that's also not an exception. So I am doing 7 honorable mentions. These were albums that I quite enjoyed, but were just a little bit short of making my top 25. And there's so many reasons for this, because there's albums that I enjoy more and some that come out very late. Because there's an album on this list that actually came out in December, but I got to listen to it before it came out because I had a promo. So that's a good thing about promos. You can listen to stuff before they come out. So let's talk about these albums that barely miss my top 25 albums of the year. And they're all different genres, they're all different altogether, but there's things from them that I quite enjoy. So the first one is Bring Me the Horizon with Post Next Generation, whatever, the album title, the song title. This is an album that a lot of the singles have come out before, like a few years, they took a long time, same as Falling in Reverse, only, good songs. And, there's songs here that I love, Kool-Aid, Strangers, Lost, Limousine. But I think one of my favorites is Amen, which features some rappers. And it's it's a more aggressive track. So this is not a perfect album. I think if this album, there's a little bit of fat with some of the interludes would have been cut, it could have made my top 25. But some of those things made it a little bit less enjoyable for me. Nonetheless, it is a great record, and Bring Me the Horizon is a great band. I like them more now than when they were a strict deathcore, because I'm not a huge deathcore fan. So yeah, there you go, Bring Me the Horizon. So continuing on, this is an album that came out, I think, February, in the beginning of the year, and I quite enjoyed it when it came out. But after a few months, I kind of listened less to it, but I still think it's worth being mentioned as an honorable mention. And it's an artist that he was in the band Emperor. So I'm talking about Ihsahn and his self-titled album. And my favorite track here is Pilgrimage to Oblivion. But this is an album that really, there's 2 versions of the album. There's the version with the music and the vocals, and then there's the orchestral version, because this album it has elements of black metal, but it also has elements of movie scores. Think of Ian Fleming and all those Hans Zimmer and everything like that, and you'll get the sound that Ihsahn did with this record, which I think is pretty cool. And he's a very awesome musician. It's not in my top 25 because even though it's a very good record, there's some parts on the record that maybe lost my attention sometimes, but I still think it is great, and that's why I have it as an honorable mention. So Ihsahn, his self-titled last album that came out way back in February. So the next band that I'm going to talk about is from Brazil, and I actually interviewed them on the channel. I didn't know them, but something that I really liked about this band is that they reminded me of Opeth. And yeah, I'm talking about the band Pia Mater. And the album that they put out, it's just great. Here's the album. It's called, oh my God, I can barely read this. Under the Shadow of a Dying Song. God damn it. It's the letters are small, people. I like this album. It has some beautiful death metal, well, beautiful and harsh at the same time, but it has some elements from Brazilian music, and it has some growls to it. They're a very underrated band, really great record. It's not in my top 25 because even though I enjoyed it, I didn't replay this enough. But I still think it's a kick-ass record. And if you like Opeth, you will like Pia Mater. And my favorite song, I think, is Infringes, but other great tracks to it. It's a great record. So Pia Mater, great album. So do not sleep on that. So moving forward, it's a band that this band has won Grammys in the past. They're like a sludgy, doomy type of band. So, and the singer also is on another band that's very famous. But this one has been his main band for a long time, and it's High on Fire with Cometh the Storm. And this album is all about riffs and more riffs. The riffing on this album is great. Matt Pike sounds ferocious as ever. A song like Burning Down, for example, great track. They really have that energy. This is a fun record. I think High on Fire is the type of band that they always deliver. They could have almost made my top 25, but there's some albums that I enjoyed a little bit more. But nonetheless, High on Fire, Cometh the Storm. If you like heavy fucking riffs, you like this fucking record. So listen to it. Do not sleep on High on Fire. So I'm glad I mentioned it as one of my honorable mentions. So I have 3 more records that I want to talk about. And the next 2 records, especially the one now, it's more of an alternative rock band from Ohio. They're pretty new and not that well known, but I'm glad that I discovered them through some of the agencies that sent me. C Squared sent me this band, and I fell in love with them. It's Red Temple Pray with the album Can It Get Any Worse? And this album cover, it's so 90s. It reminds me of like an album cover by a band like Lit. So this is a really fun band. That's, all the tracks are these alternative rock tracks. They talk about love. They talk about like relatable stuff. My favorite track is Before the Bombs Goes Off, which was one of my top 10 songs of the year. It's just great. But the album as a whole, it's a shorter album, like 35, 36 minutes. But if you like that alternative rock from the 90s, you will love this record. It's a really cool band. And I also interviewed the band, so I got to talk to them more about this album and the influences. So yeah, it's a pretty cool album that I know a lot of people probably don't know who this band is. And it almost made my top 25. But again, there were a few other albums in this type of music that I enjoyed a little bit more, but still an honorable mention. Great record by Red Temple Pray. So if you like 90s, check them out. So the next band on my honorable mentions list is a band that's been around since the early 2000s or late 1990s. They're from Africa, but they play post-grunge, and they've been very consistent throughout the years. The lead singer, you may know him because he used to date Amy Lee from Evanescence. So yeah, I'm talking about Seether and their last album, The Surface Seems So Far. So yeah, this is a very consistent and solid record. My only critique from this record and why it's not in my top 25, it's the sound. There's some parts on this record that the sound sounds like a little bit muddled, and like the vocals can be sometimes that you can't hear them well. My friend, Lively St. Race, did an album review, and he's like, I can't hear you, Seether, but you know what? I did enjoy this album a lot. There's some great tracks like Beneath the Veil, Same Mistakes, Judas Mind. For a band that's been around for a long time, they're still putting out consistent rock music. And I've liked all their last albums. I think they're as great as their classic stuff. And I think I like Sean Morgan's voice. It's he has the voice that the Wes from Photobot wish he had, because this dude can actually sing some Nirvana songs. And great album, and that's why I want to talk about it and give it props, because it is a great solid record. So coming in, the last one is the album that came out actually December 6th, and it's a progressive metal band from France. The name of the band is The Old Dead Tree, and they put out an album that I'm telling you, if this would have come out earlier, it could have made my top 25, because I just haven't had enough time with this record to to talk about it. So it's Second Thoughts, The Old Dead Tree. This is this album has progressive metal, rock elements. I really love songs like Don't Waste Your Time, which is great. But there's some other tracks on this record that are super amazing. This band is signed to Season of Mist. So a background of this band: they're very popular in Europe, but not as well known in the States. And you know what? They should be well known in the States, because they're very good. This is like amazing, prog metal that deserves the attention of more people. So this album, other tracks that I think are great: Unpredictable, The Lightest Straw, which was one of the singles. You have a song called Better Off Dead, which I don't know, when I saw that title, I thought they were talking about that John Cusack movie that he's always like, I want my $2. And he was trying to, off himself the whole movie. The 80s were strange, man. Other great tracks is like, I love tracks like Fresh Start, Solastalgia, which is another one of the singles. And, The Worst Is Yet to Come. It's 14 songs, great tracks. Okay, this is an album that is really great. I'm telling you, they could have waited till January, and this could have been like in the top 25 of next year. But yeah, they put it out December. So this is the only December album that I'm including as an honorable mention. It's great. I really been listening to it a lot, and amazing record and amazing band. And I interviewed them on the channel. So if you haven't seen my interview with Old Dead Tree, I suggest that you watch that interview and listen to this band. This is their first album in more than 12 years. They broke up, they got back together, but they're back. And Second Thoughts is out on Season of Mist. It is an amazing prog metal album that you should not sleep on. So there you have it, Couchers. These are my 7 honorable mentions that almost made the list, but just fell short for a little bit, but amazing albums nonetheless. So please check them out if you haven't, and give these albums a chance. So coming up next on the channel, I have my top albums of the year, number 10 through number 6, and that one will be on Saturday. And then on Tuesday, the 17th of December, it's our top 5 albums of the year with Señorita, Sabrosura, and myself. I give my top 5, and she gives her top 5, and then we will come back in January. So until next time, Couchers, this is Hector, the Shield Dude on a Couch, and I'll see you all right here on the couch. Thank you, and goodbye.